Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard with Senior Living Smart, and today I am joined by Sue Farrow. Now, many of Sue from the operating side. She was the founder of Integral Senior Living and Solstice Senior Living, and was very pivotal in the development or the launch of CALA, the California Assisted Living chapter. And what we're talking about today is a really new and exciting kind of movement that Sue is really undertaking with her new organization called SHORE, which is Senior Housing Relief for Elders. Through decades of work in senior housing, Sue understands how seniors' lives can be positively impacted by living in a community. Her dream is for all seniors to have access to quality housing and services regardless of their income. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Debbie. Happy Monday.
I know. What a great way to kick off the week. Excited to speak with you about SHORE and learn more about it. So I always like to start with the founder's story because you know what? You could have just sold your companies and sailed off into the sunset and had probably a lot of time around the pool. I'm sure Tony would have liked that very much. But here you are, you haven't missed a beat since selling the companies and are really jumping back in to really, I think, pursue a passion project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got here and what motivated you to start SHORE?
Sure. I think my whole career has been a passion project.
Yes.
So from the day that senior housing hooked me in 1975, 50 years ago, it's been a passion project. And prior to starting my own company, which you know this better than any, along with it being passion, it's a lot of hard work.
Sure is. Amen.
Into it. And I think along the way in all of those years, what was always something that was so concerning to me is all those seniors we couldn't touch. I've always been in the world of market rate senior housing. You know, some in the early days with family retirement would be a bit more mid-market, but since then it's been that higher end. And a couple of things confounded me about that. Not that I didn't enjoy operating all of those communities for all those ownership groups all these years. So, two things. And one, that was the resident who would live with us for 3 years and then spend down their assets. And as an operator, what do we do? How do we, certainly in states where there was a kid waiver program, we would have a small percentage of units set aside for those residents that have been with us for a while. But there's a whole lot of states that don't have those programs. And so that was always a personal hurt and challenge with how we handled that. So that's partially why SHORE came about, but also it's the folks that can't afford that level of senior housing, even though we know the benefits, even though we know the research shows us even that the lack of socialization, especially, is equal to smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. That's just mind blowing. And add to that the 3 square meals and taking your medications at the right time and all of that. We know how it improves the quality of life for seniors. And so I want everybody to be able to move in to a quality senior housing. Unfortunately, we also, some of us know some of those places that we don't necessarily aspire to have people move into. So SHORE really started about 2.5 years ago. And I did sell my company in 2023. And I knew I needed something to keep me busy and to continue my passion.
Yeah.
And for my poor husband, Tony, it didn't mean sitting around the pool for 5 hours a day reading a book, although we do that a bit more frequently than we used to. And so SHORE started about 2.5 years ago. And originally I had a advisory board, and they were wonderful. And some of the names of the industry were on that advisory board with me, and all encouraged me to start small, which is tough for me because I have to think more globally.
You are a go big or go home kind of gal. You're just wired like that, Sue.
I am. And so they were fabulous. They were like, let's start with a program that we really can look at, monitor, really get our arms around, let's start small geographically so that we can touch people in San Diego County. And so we've started with some grants at this juncture to help people move into senior housing. And so, really, at the base of it is just my desire that anybody who wants to be able to be in this kind of a accommodation and service level that improves their lives, that they have the opportunity to do that. It's just I want to help everybody.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Bottom line to it.
That's great. And you and I have both been in this industry long enough to and worked with enough families trying to find solutions that it's really it's in that gap that we lose people. So while there are affordable housing projects, sometimes they're not the most desirable projects. Or I used to work with people, it was literally about, I can do the monthly rent, but I don't have the entrance fee. I don't have that move-in fee, or it's, I'm fine at this level, but if I need more care and the next care level is $500 a month more, I know I'm okay for today, but I'm not sure that I'm okay for tomorrow. Or I'm waiting for a benefit like the veterans benefit. So while there are the HUD and the low income tax credit type of programs, there's a big leap to market rate where there are going to be, just the reality of it, there's going to be increases, there'll be level of care increases, there's going to be yearly cost of living increases. And so it's maybe not always the big money that it takes to fill that gap, but it's literally those just a few $100s a month that make a difference.
Absolutely. And then let's compare that to the numbers of people, my little baby boom generation, and it inflates that number of people in that gap to some crazy degree. And so it sure is all about that. How do we do our part in helping close at least a little bit of that gap, at least a little bit of it?
Yeah, and then we need the bigger solution, but at least we can start with the what can we
Yes.
do today to help make it more affordable, more accessible, have people not outspend their money. So you talked about starting small, starting in a very small kind of test area, and then you expanded. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the starting small and then the scaling?
Absolutely. So the starting small again came from the advisory board. Slow your roll, Sue.
Yep.
So we did start with the aid and attendance program. And there's a lot, and trust me, I have ownership groups that we operated for over the years who also weren't desiring to move a veteran in who was in the process of waiting for their aid and attendance benefits to kick in. And you totally understand the reasoning why. If they move out of the property before that hits, then
Yep.
you're, as an operator, just out whatever you've subsidized them by allowing them to live there before those benefits kick in. People pass away, people move out for other reasons. And so there's no guarantee if you move somebody in before they actually have the benefits that
Yeah.
that you're going to that's going to work for you. And so initially we actually were covering 60 days of their aid and attendance benefit amount. That felt good. But when you have a certain amount of money, there's only so many people you could help by doing that. It's a good $6,000-7,000 hit of money per veteran. So instead, we partnered with a small aid and attendance group that does that application processing, and we covered their processing fee.
Yeah.
We ended up switching to, we're working with Patriot Angels. I think that's on our website. And we covered that processing fee for a certain number of their clients every month. And that feels good. Now we could accommodate even more people.
Yeah.
And then that branched out to, okay, that's great. While we love veterans, we're not just a veteran organization. And there are many wonderful organizations out there. So then it branched out into some small grants to help people out, anybody, veteran or not, to move into communities, be that covering community fee, be that moving expenses, be that covering part of the first month's rent, whatever that was, we now have a granting program that we have gone out to all of our communities and even those folks higher up in the companies to say, here, we've got some money. If you've got
Right.
a resident, and clearly there's requirements around that. We're not giving grants to somebody that's got a couple $1,000,000 in the bank. Right? So there's definitely some requirements about the need of that particular resident. But so those are our programs right now. My hope, of course, is expanding that even further. And do you want to get into the chapter model now?
I do. You're leading me right into it. A lot of scaling and making a bigger difference and serving more people is really around this thought of actually building shore chapters. So, talk a little bit about that.
So we have helped, I think we're at about 140 seniors or so move into senior housing in various and assorted ways. And that feels good. That's not even a drop in the bucket. I don't know what's smaller than a drop, but that's what that is, right?
Yeah.
So we're stymied by how we reach even more people with this. To recently, it's my money funding this, and
Sure.
beyond happy to do that, but my money isn't going to reach that gap, right?
Yep.
It's going to reach part of it, it's not going to reach all of it. And so one of the board members came up with the thought of doing chapters, which it's not a cool word to think about in senior housing, but it's almost like franchising our 501c3.
Yeah.
So the goal being more and more operators who have a chapter under our umbrella. We just reached that many more seniors. And so we're just about to sign our second chapter. We've just literally started this work, but it literally allows ABC Senior Housing to form their own foundation, ABC Foundation, that is under Shore. And so Shore does all of the work of a nonprofit. So an operator who's always had a desire to be philanthropic that way, and I know you'll talk about the cool marketing side of this,
Yeah.
who's always wanted to do something like this, but it is time, money, resources heavy. It's not something you can just decide you want to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we've been through it all. We've been through all the legal piece. We've been through the accounting piece. We have a whole nonprofit set up, all the reporting required, all of those elements of it are already set up in a nonprofit that's been operating for just about 2.5 years now, maybe a little bit more. And so literally ABC company can form ABC Foundation. They in turn, oh, that's the other thing we do. We help with the fundraising. We help with the marketing piece of it. Literally, they can have their own nonprofit set up in it's foundation in a box, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's turnkey.
Here you go. And while ABC Senior Housing can't themselves donate into their ABC Foundation to in turn move residents into their own communities, because that's called quid pro quo. And the authorities don't like that. But they can in turn hold their own fundraisers. Their residents can hold bake sales. They can go to their vendors, hello Cisco, that they buy how much food from. They can out to all of those people that touch their communities and their residents. My HR person would say in an HR appropriate way.
Yes.
They can begin to fund their foundation through those kinds of donations. And just as an example, last year, Integral Senior Living chose Shore as its charity of the year. And through, again, bake sales and other kinds of fundraisers that all of ISL's communities were holding, we raised over $23,000 for Shore last year. And they didn't have to do any of the work but hold the bake sale, things that are already going on in communities. resident families that want to give back because of the care their families getting. So we help with that whole process. We
Yeah.
set you up as if you formed your own foundation.
And there's really like different scenarios, right? So there are probably, and I think you've run into and had conversations with some senior living companies that have an existing foundation, but either it's just so much work to manage, or maybe they haven't gone to the extent of even making their foundation a not-for-profit.
Exactly. And the benefit again for the operator or the ownership groups is writing off, or the people that are donating to their foundation being able to write those donations off. So there's a feel good benefit. And then for those folks donating, there's a tax benefit as well.
Yeah, and it can be either, I guess, what are some of the visions that have come to you from people that you're talking about? Are most of them wanting to do something specifically for whether
I think you froze on me, or I froze
it's
on.
residents within their, oh, maybe I froze. I've been having trouble. Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'll start again. So what are some of the models that you when you speak with some of the owners and operators around the country, are the models around setting up a foundation to support employees, or is it more like local seniors in their area? Is it food programs? Is it technology programs? What are some of the things that people are really passionate about?
I think what we're trying to do is keep to the mission of what we're trying to do here. And that's it, allow an even broader group of seniors to be able to take advantage of the quality of life they can get moving into a community. And so we're not trying to also be the Alzheimer's Association or God bless breast cancer fundraisers or so the idea is still to be in that senior housing family. Certainly to support employee groups. We know, oh my gosh, we know how employees are so important to this whole mission. And so, yes, employee programs, anything that's going to benefit the seniors in the community, and that absolutely can be employee related. I envision operators in that framework coming up with all kinds of cool ways that they could use the donations to their own foundation. It's just not go outside of senior housing, if that makes sense. It really is how do we support seniors?
Yeah, that's great. So you can help manage existing foundations. You can take all that heavy lifting off. You can help stand up a brand new foundation that
Yes.
somebody's always wanted to get to, but it just keeps falling down to the bottom of the list, right?
We see operators off the top of my head, I can think of a few that have funds. They have funds within their organizations that they help certainly their employees more than anything, which is great. So form a foundation around that. But they don't do it, of course, because again, the time and resources it takes to set up a nonprofit is extensive. And they
Yeah.
got other things on their mind, like census.
And staffing and all those things.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's lots of benefits to any senior living organization to create that foundation tax purposes. This is a marketing podcast, and so I know that there's a marketing take on this as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about this. People want to be around companies that give back.
Yeah.
This is, I think most people do. People in general want to know that the companies they're dealing with are stand up good citizens and wanting to give back. And so your ability as you market, not just for to family members and potential residents moving in, but also to staff to come work at your properties to talk about here's what you also do as ABC Senior Housing. We help seniors move in. We help employees in hard times. It you a step above your competitors.
Yeah.
It's just an extra feel good telling your prospects your story of why you're a better a better fit for their parent or that employee than your competitor down the street is.
Yeah, because a lot of times all things are equal, right?
Yes.
Everyone's got it's
The
a sea of,
apartment, yep,
yeah,
yep.
so you get this the sea of sameness, and we have the same, we're about the priced about the same depending on the age of the building, but we all have the same taxes in that market. We all have the same labor pool in that market. There's not going to be significance. We all have great services and amenities, but if you're the one that really goes out above and beyond and says and really stands for helping others and making senior housing more accessible and more affordable and helping to bridge those small gaps that oftentimes people have to make sure they don't outlive their money and all those fears that are very human. It really can elevate your brand and make that tie-breaking difference.
It can. And so I suppose one of the things I should have done is shared some of the letters that we get,
Yeah,
not just from the residents who we've been able to help move in, but also from the marketing directors that are like, and quite frankly, how many more people can you help move into my
that's
community?
right.
And so it's feel good on all levels, and it's absolutely an additional arrow in the quill for a marketing director to know that they've got at hand to help a resident.
Yeah, absolutely. But you alone can't do it. Like your bank can't be the only bank that's out subsidizing and continuing to pull down from what you've been able to invest in this kind of movement. I think you're trying to create a movement. So
I
I'd
hope
love,
so.
I would love to know, how do you envision pulling in more people? When I think about honestly how much money the REITs are making and the vendor groups are making and all these people that are really benefiting significantly from income that's earned, it seems every time I go to a large conference, every vendor is vying for time with the operators. Why don't we just have a shore dinner before Leading Age and Argentum and Asha and Nick? Why don't we have a shore dinner and have a sponsor from a nice vendor, not a little guy like us who can't probably do it, but somebody of significance, those big brands that we all know about? Why can't they host a table of $250, $500 a plate, whatever? And then it's those more participation just creates more opportunity for sure.
I think I just hired you as our fundraiser.
Yeah. A lot of times, and you know this from being at the conferences, most of the time you fly in the night before
Yes.
the conference begins. And that's when you do your great networking. It's so great to see everybody. But it just seems like such an opportunity. You have all of those evenings of a conference, and while you're going to do special things with your team and certain other partnerships that you have, it just seems it's a great way to create equity in how do we fund this. Or what if a REIT or some of the larger brands could commit 1%? What about 1% of revenue or 1% of community fees? What would 1% do? You're a numbers person, Sue. What would 1% translate
Oh,
into?
I- trying to think of what the number of lives that can be improved by that 1%. And think about this as well. And we have reached out to vendors, and especially now with the chapter model, that is going to be a big push for us. Because guess who needs that feel good publicity
Sure.
more than our operators do? Because they're in a feel good business already.
Yeah.
Whereas some of those private equity folks and the big REITs and the big vendors need a little bit of look at us. We give back to the industry that is making us a nice profit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a percentage of the chapter revenue does go back into Shore to allow you to also increase your reach.
It does. And that's the way you are able to create this chapter model is 2% of every chapter's donations on an annual basis needs to flow into Shore's general fund. And that also keeps us away from that third rail of quid pro quo. And it's not a large amount of money, but it does keep us being able, because we want to continue to be, this isn't going to all be on the chapter's plate to do. We want to absolutely continue to thrive as our own foundation. And yeah, and it's a small amount of fees each month for us to literally operate your foundation for you. It runs, I think, about, don't quote me, but I think it's about $500 a month for us to do that work for you, to make sure the reporting is happening when it's supposed to make sure the donations, we handle the money as it comes in from you. We handle the money as you request it to go out, but we make sure it is meeting the 501(c)(3's mission, and we're not funding the owner's Thanksgiving dinner or something.
That's right.
I don't know why that popped into my mind. But we keep your foundation honest. We keep your foundation within the confines of a nonprofit, of a 501(c)(3). We do all the accounting. We help you with all the fundraising. We help you with marketing ideas around that. We have two amazing people on staff at Shore that have put together so many wonderful training pieces, like training your staff and how you work with this foundation, in information you send to your donors, how you go about that, in kinds of events you can hold, in helping you with flyers for that and anything else. We have a whole marketing arm that does that. It literally is a foundation in a box.
Yeah, it really is. It takes so much weight off the operator. I believe that there are so many more people out there that would love to stand up a foundation. It's always just seemed overwhelming, and who has enough time in the day to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
So what are some other, and it seems to me like some of the things that you've done to raise funds, it's sometimes the littlest things that take a very small amount of effort or are already happening inside an organization really
Yes.
create great opportunity. Talk about the bocce events.
Yes. I run into JP LaMonaco, that probably everybody that listens to this podcast knows. I ran into him at a NIC conference, and he was like, "So, what are you doing?" And so I said, "I've started this nonprofit foundation." And he was like, "Oh, we do this bocce ball tournament every year in Southern California, and it's for folks that are involved in senior housing one way or another. And every year we choose a charity. Let me take it back to the board and see, maybe Shore would be a good charity for us." And sure enough, they chose us as their charity. For that, we set up their whole website to have teams come in and to have their sponsorships come in. We produced all kinds of tchotchkes for them. We had a table there. I learned to play bocce ball, which I never thought I'd do in my life. And we raised about $25,000 from that. And it's something they're already doing. And it was, as JP told me later, such a perfect fit for them, because they've done stuff community wise, but this reached the heart of what they all do as their business. There were lenders there were insurance people there were operators there. It was a really cool event. Plus, it was fun to catch up with people.
Yeah. All right. Everybody out there who's got a pickleball tournament, a
I'll learn to
golf
play.
tournament.
I don't know if I'll learn to play golf. That might be a reach.
That could be, but maybe for a donation, you could be like the caddy or drive the cart or
I could
something.
the party cart.
The party cart, the Sue party cart. People would have to bid on that.
I definitely would do that.
Yep.
Yes. I love it. I definitely would do that.
So people can do fundraisers. People can decide to have you take over and manage an existing foundation, or they could reach out and say, "We've been thinking about this for years. Now I know, Sue, that you can help me. Let's go ahead and do that." I think you also have individual contributors that either subscribe on a monthly basis or have kind of one-time gifts. Can you talk a little bit about any ways that people can become part of this movement and just help more seniors experience senior housing that we love so much?
Absolutely. We do have people that have a certain amount come to us every month. They've committed to that, and we just love them. That's great. We have folks as kind of part of their annual giving, choose Shore to give to. We also, again, like JP and CBRE, that held an event that contributed to Shores. I think we sent you a link for how people can go, because if I have to remember all those details, that's why Jennifer and Monica are amazing and they can do all of that for you. But there's so many ways. And again, even on a personal level, if you're getting towards the end of the year and thinking about it's your time to think about your taxes, you might get a charitable deduction. Think about Shore and think about it, how it helps you help seniors. That's, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have all that information in the show notes so that people can get that. And now let's talk a little bit about the future. I know you think big. So as much as you've started small and then you pivoted to the chapter model, what's the future vision? Where can you and the team take this, do you think?
I think a number of ways. I initially thought about this. Certainly, that ability for us to help those residents that have spent down. That's a bigger chunk of money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to take more people, more donations, more money, unless we find, is there an organization out there we can align with that we can share some of that burden with? We're just starting to explore other ways we can maybe even help be a resource to operators as we begin to explore who can help our foundation. How can we then help refer other operators to those resources? And those resources are out there. I also, though, want to be able to influence different government agencies, be that federal, be that state, be that local, and how they can help subsidize residents in senior housing. Let's talk about Medicare. I know we got some coming, but let's talk about Medicare. The research and the science is there. How we improve quality of health and life for seniors in senior housing, and then have less impact on the whole healthcare piece of Medicare. And so, how do we engage those kinds of organizations to help support seniors when in turn it frees up money for them to use in other ways? So, influence. I guess that's where I see Shore ultimately being is an influencer.
Yeah, somehow we've got to figure out how we can tap into some other programs. For instance, there are several states that our clients work in where there's like a home care benefit. If they run out of money in senior housing, it's usually the care that becomes the part that prices them out of the community. So if they could take that same home care benefit that if they were living at home, they could get in senior housing, that
Yes.
seems like available kind of funding and money that could be allocated, but it's about really getting creative and then I guess partnering on the state and federal level to find solutions and probably making a case for how much would this reduce reimbursement for readmissions, for
Yes.
our visits and the frequent flyers that keep coming through because they never really can stabilize just with home care.
And we have to have scale to have those messages impact at certain levels, right?
Yeah.
And again, the folks that we've happened, it feels good, but we don't have the scale to have the impact yet that we envision and have. And so the chapter is the second ring of that. The first was what we initially were doing and continue to do, but the second rung of that ladder is increasing the chapters, and in turn that increases the numbers we're helping, which makes people take us a bit more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Sue, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your senior living marketing perspectives. This is really a rallying cry for everybody out there who's listening to find a way to make a difference, whether it's contributing individually or through your company, having a model, having a fundraiser. I hope that the associations will have a Shore dinner at some point during their meeting and everybody gets to contribute. But if everyone does a little bit, it really helps a lot of seniors that are out there and they're not safe and they're not leading the lives that they could lead living in community.
Absolutely. And if you want to join my party bus at the golf course, I won't golf with you, but I'll have beer, wine, whatever you're liking. I will have, and a few good stories to go along with it for
You
sure.
know what, Sue? I want to be on that party bus. So
Okay.
let's do that. If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to contribute or just learn more, where would you like them to visit?
They can visit our website, Senior Housing Relief for Elders, and they can email me. And my email is sue.farrow@shre.org. I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. I hope that you get a lot of folks reaching out, and it was just an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, Sue.
Always love talking to you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.